Hi, I'm Alex Goddard, massive Doctor Who fan, and welcome back to my channel for a brand new Doctor Who video. Now today we're going to be talking about the most iconic and the most human / robotic like creatures that have appeared on our screens for over 50 years within the Doctor Who history. The one and only, the Cybermen. So ruthless, so aggressive, so violent, so sneaky from the shadows. Throughout many of the stories in Doctor Who, we have seen great moments of the Cybermen reaching to new heights that we've never seen before. And some stories that have left the Cybermen feel embarrassed of themselves. But today, I'm going to be taking you on a journey of my ranking of every single Cyberman story ranked from worst to best. Are you ready? Because this is going to be a fun one. So sit back and relax and enjoy my video of every single Cyberman story ranked from worst to best. Okay then, so let's start off this list at number 19. Now, it's a shame there haven't been 20 Cyberman stories. I always like to finish off on a digit zero number, but nevertheless, we have 19 Cyberman stories. Now, I'm only going to be counting the televised Cyberman stories, so there'll be no Big Finish, no Torchwood episodes involved. This is just the televised stories from the 1960s up to the current 2020 decade. And so let's start off with number 19 with 2008's Christmas special, The Next Doctor. Now, unfortunately, I have to say this is the most disappointing Cyberman story there is, and it's just so overwhelming of what the Cybermen bring to the story. They don't bring that sense of violence, they don't bring that sense of menace you assume with the Cybermen. They just feel underused and underappreciated in the story, and they are not used to their full potential. They aren't the main focus, they're pretty much used as a side character, a bit of like henchmen for Lady Hartigan, who are controlling the Cybermen, and they want to create a new world full of a Cyber King and other versions of the Cybermen, I expect. But it's not the plot that we expect. Jackson Lake, I'm not doubting him as his performance as the Doctor, who has the traumatizing effect of becoming the Doctor, going alongside with David Tennant, and it's a really fun story for the Doctor and the Doctor, if you want to call it that. But the Cybermen, if we are only going to be judging the Cybermen based on what they do, the Cyber Shades are a nice touch, but let's just face it, the Cybermen in this story aren't the best. They are the usual Cybermen, which I'll get onto soon, but let's just say this is the most really disappointing story. That the two stories, they don't gel well together. The Cybermen aren't the main focus, they're pretty much used as henchmen rather than inhuman killers, and it's just a real shame just to see them not doing as much or taking control of the situation. If you take one or a few elements out, they could be the main focus, but in this sort of context, a historical story, they just don't gel well, and I don't think it's the right fitting for the Cybermen in this story. So that's number 19, The Next Doctor. Up next, we're going back to series 6, and we're going to the only Cybermen story that has pretty much only featured in Matt Smith's era, Closing Time. Now, Closing Time is very silly, it's very predictable, and it's just a very weak Cyberman story overall. They have a few creepy moments, but that's not necessarily like the main focus. They aren't really considered as the main focus of the story. It's usually about the relationship between Matt Smith and James Corden. Now, let's say those two are like a bit of like, it's like Mama, you either love them or you hate them, that sort of like combination. But I do generally like their pairing. I think they're a really good team, and they have a few funny moments here and there. They're really just amusing to watch. But if you're looking at this for a Cyberman point of view, they are just like deteriorating so badly that they've got literally nothing to live for now. They're pretty much underneath this a shop or an Arndale centre, and they're pretty much taking people for upgrading, and it's just a really rushed episode. If they took their time and actually built some actual suspense, and maybe they would have, like, I don't know, had maybe a decent ending or a good resolving ending to the story, instead of the Cybermen just got beaten with love, and it's just such of a weak ending for the Cybermen, and I just don't really like it. It's just one of the most disappointing and one of the most, let's say, to be honest, it's the most shittest story that I've seen in my life. But unfortunately, it's a good story that gels really nicely rather than my last entry, The Next Doctor, those stories just don't gel well together. And with this one, it does slightly gel nicely, but it's just the plot is rushed, the ending is poor, there's the only good characters are Matt Smith and James Corden, and the Cybermen, they're just underused again, and it's just such a shame because I really would have liked Matt Smith to have more of a tenure with the Cybermen being at the highest, but no, they are really underappreciating. It's sort of embarrassing really just to watch. So that's number 18, Closing Time. Alright then, number 17, it's another Matt Smith story, and I really feel criminally sorry for Matt Smith to not have a decent Cyberman story. We're going with his next story with the Cybermen, Nightmare in Silver. Now let's just say, this is the story that loads of people were looking forward to, and I would say that the entire mixed reactions of all of the fans say that it was a good story, but let's just say there's more potential there than what we actually got. And let's just say they make the Cybermen so robotic, like super robotic. They pretty much make the Cybermen pretty invincible in this episode, and the only way that Matt Smith has the only opportunity to do is to blow them up. And let's not worry about the characters that Clara is the nanny and brings the kids into the story. It's sort of nice at the beginning, but let's just say they're really fucking irritating. And as a Cyberman point of view, they are so overpowered, and they've pretty much lost the identity of what they are meant to be as a Cyberman. They've upgraded themselves too much to that extent that they seem really overpowering, and that's, unfortunately, that's what we usually assume the Cybermen to upgrade themselves that many times in order for them to see themselves surviving for a longer period of time. And that seems to be like the final version of the Cybermen to be living for a long extended period of time. But these just literally feel so invincible with super speedy walk and grabbing people, their heads coming off and their hands coming off. It's literally like, I don't know, it's like a robot that kind of disjoints their hands and then puts them back together again, like a Lego figure. It pretty much feels like that. And so it does feel like there's a lot of potential there, but that human element there that we usually associate with the Cybermen in most of the stories I'm going to show you, it's just that human element was just completely chucked in the bin and completely forgotten about. Like with most of the Cybermen designs, this design just feels too robotic, and just there is a lot more potential there of what they could have done. And the story itself, it's just, I think it's just not the scale of what we hoped for, and the only resorting plan of what the Doctor had to do was to beat the Cyberplanet. It was nice to see the Cyberplanet back, but it was just a game of chess that the Cybermen lost, and then they had to be blown up on a planet by a supermassive ship, sort of like the Death Star in Star Wars. But let's just say it's not the best outing for the Cybermen in Matt Smith's era, and I do really feel sorry for him because he would have had maybe a better era with the Cybermen than the Daleks. Because let's just face it, Matt Smith, with all the Daleks and all the Cybermen outings, he's not had the greatest amount of outings with those two massive villains. Let's just say that Eccleston didn't have the Cybermen, but he created some brilliant stories, some epic stories with the Daleks. The same with David Tennant, he had so many great Cybermen stories as well as Dalek stories, whereas Matt Smith unfortunately just has the worst pick of the bunch, and I really feel sorry for him. That's number 17 now. Nightmare in Silver. Okay, coming up to number 16, we have our first story of the classic series. We have Silver Nemesis. Now, I'm ashamed to say that the 7th Doctor has to be at the bottom of this list. I feel like there's too many villains in this, and the Cybermen, they aren't as dominant. They get so many allergies to gold, and gold is such a massive factor in this story, and it literally overpowers the Cybermen, and it just completely takes away all of their fear in just this one story. It just doesn't feel like the Cybermen are out there menacing. It's really cool to see their designs and to have one of the best explosives and one of the most fun sort of fight scenes I've seen in a long time from a Cyberman point of view. It was really cool, but unfortunately though, some just get so overpowered by historical characters, the military, the Nazis, and then it comes over to sudden, like, you know, as soon as they go near some soil that's been covered with gold, they completely like back away from it. It's like, it's literally taken all of the emotion, all of the fear, and you know, the terror that you used to associate with the Cybermen. Now you just kind of think, if you just pile up a little bit of gold in front of your road, the Cybermen won't come near you. It's like removing like all sorts of terror and, you know, terrifying menace that the Cybermen always bring, but like, it's just a really disappointing Cyberman story, but there are some good moments here and there, and it literally leads on to my next story, which also had another gold allergy in terms of the classic series, and that's number 15, Revenge of the Cybermen. And I'm also very sorry for Tom Baker to have a Cyberman story that is not the best in terms of good quality. And let's just say they used the sets from the Ark in Space, and they reintroduced the Cybermat, which I actually prefer that Cybermat to be the best looking Cybermat. No sort of eyes, no sort of gritty teeth, just a simple shape with no sort of visual effects like eyes, nose, mouth, just a simple long metal snake rallying across the space station. It looks really cool. And also for the Cybermen designs, they've got lasers. They're a bit adapted to another future story that I will mention really soon, but they've got lasers at the top of the head that sort of gives them an advantage. But the plot is really dumb and boring here. It's like one person has been told by the Vogers on Vogan as the planet of gold, has been told that they're the planet of gold, and then this one person, Kellon, I think his name is, completely tells the Cybermen that there is this planet of gold, you need to go and destroy it. And it just feels like so complicated. Like the plot just seems to be like, I don't know what the hell is going on here. And my problem with the Cybermen, they aren't usually voiced by other people who are doing the voice for them. They're doing the voices themselves, and sometimes the Cybermen look too robotic, but then they sound too human, and it's just not a good gel of the bunch. It's just a really bad pairing of when you're actually playing the Cyberman and you have to do the voices. You have to sound like a Cyberman, but unfortunately the voices just sound too human, and with the design already looking too robotic, and pretty much they don't do anything. They have a few scenes down on Voga, but since the entire planet is made out of gold, aren't the Cybermen are supposed to suffocate from that? I mean, there's the cave system where the Cybermen literally walk through, and pretty much the entire caves, aren't they made out of gold too? Is the entire planet, the entire cave system, made out of gold? So therefore the Cybermen can't really go down to Voga and attack or destroy or be like a dominant force. Aren't they supposed to suffocate in the caves because everywhere is gold? Does that make sense? I mean, if you're allergic to gold, you're allergic to gold, end of. I mean, if an entire planet is made out of gold, you should be suffocating from the moment you land on that planet. And I'm sorry to say, they just completely take that gold element away, and like, it's that gold allergy that I don't know why that certain element is kind of like harmful for the Cybermen. I know there are episodes of stories where it becomes really relevant and it's a massive impactful, you know, benefits. But like I said, it takes the whole terror and the menacing feeling away from the Cybermen, and it just makes them feel like defenseless, like they can't really do much. And the problem with this though is just there's a really dumb and really stupid plot that completely takes them out of the picture. It just makes them feel like they're just walking around Voga where they should be suffocating, but they're not. And I don't necessarily know what their plan is. And so it's a really confusing plot. So let's just say Tom Baker has a blast, has some really funny moments, but let's just say Harry and Sarah Jane get caught up in the midst of it, and I think Sarah has really good, impactful, you know, ways on this story, and she's pretty good in this. And we also have the massive line of the Doctor shouting, "Harry Sullivan is an imbecile!" Yes, let's just say it's one of the most iconic lines of this story, and that is the only thing that we'll remember from this story. So that's number 15, Revenge of the Cybermen. Coming now to number 14, we have our outing of the 5th Doctor. Now this is the second outing of the Cybermen with the 5th Doctor in the 5 Doctors, the 25th anniversary of Doctor Who. This is generally a fun story, and I really love how they go on to Gallifrey and they have a little bit of fun. They split up into different factions. One of them get destroyed by a robotic quick lighting thing with like arrows coming out of their fingers or something, I don't know. But it's a really cool sequence, and it makes the Doctor feel like, you know, the Cybermen are gonna get attacked first rather than them, so they feel like, oh, they've got a chance to escape. And the Cybermen, they are just completely defenseless. And then you've got a faction of Cybermen who have been taken by the Master to the centre of Gallifrey, and they are completely tricked by a puzzle on the floor, sort of like a game of chess. chess, trying to go through a so-called like a square center of like cubes you're supposed to go through, sort of like a puzzle on Exelon with Death to the Daleks. It's sort of similar like that. And then there's a faction of Cybermen that try to blow up the TARDIS, but they survive on Gallifrey. And I'm just thinking, they're in the death zone on Gallifrey. Do they eventually decay and die, or do they survive? Now that's a bit of a question really. Do they survive and then they get helped by the Master to become, as I probably would assume later on in the story, you kind of see what I'm getting at here. But let's just say that the Five Doctors is a very fun outing for the Cybermen. They are a bit of like a side note, but they do have some fun moments. It's better than just having one appearance from a Dalek and then they're not used at all throughout the entire story. The Cybermen do feel like they're going to be like the main sort of villain in this story, and I really do feel it's sort of like a Cyberman story because they do have a lot of good moments and they do survive in the end. Or do they? Or do they just decay and they're completely being forgotten about with no usual explanation? But that's going to be something like a little bit of a brainstorm in your mind. Have you figured out what I'm getting at here? With the Cybermen surviving on Gallifrey, how do they escape? Do they survive in the death zone? What happened to them? Do they sometimes literally come back in a new series and then they get upgraded by you know what, which we'll hopefully come on to very soon. But that's number 14, the Five Doctors. Next up on this list we have number 13, and this is the only Cyberman story that unfortunately hasn't been animated, but I would really hope that this story is soon to be animated very soon in the near future, and that's The Wheel in Space. Now let's just say this one has a lot of good elements. I find it's a really creepy story, and I would say that there are a few benefactors of this story. You get the introduction of Zoe, who's a really great scientist, and she's really good. She's very smart, and she has a really good role to play in this story, and I do think the Cybermen are really good in this. But unfortunately the reason why I rank it this low is because all of the other episodes 1, 2, 4, 5 are just missing, and unfortunately without the proper animation I can't rank it really high on this list, because unfortunately episodes 3 and 6 you sometimes see the middle part and you see the ending part. I want to see episodes 2 and 4 and 5 specifically on how the entire sort of plot develops. I can't really tell you every detail of the plot, but I do know there are some really good creepy moments, and the Doctor definitely feels like that he is in a sort of like a dangerous position. He has to bargain with the Cybermen and has to sort out what he must do in order to stop the Cybermen. The Cybermen designs are quite good in this, but let's just say they are a bit clumsy in terms of the actual story. They sometimes fall off the sets, and they are just a bit clumsy and a bit silly to watch really. But like I said, number 13, The Wheel in Space is a really underappreciated Cyberman story, and I would love to rate it higher, but unfortunately without the animation I can't really rank it that higher. Okay then, now moving on to number 12, we have the 2006 finale. We have Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Now, I am just going to say this right here, right now. Army of Ghosts as a solo episode is so good. I love the way that the entire world is filled with ghosts, and you're thinking, what the hell is going on here? Has 2006 now had a turnaround and now introduced real life ghosts? And the Doctor's trying to work out what it all is. Then you get to see the reveal of Torchwood that ghosts are coming through another universe, through a bridge, and they're crossing from our universe to another universe in a sort of similar reverse or fashion. And it's such a really inspiring Doctor Who story. So it makes you wonder though, that if we ever developed the technology, could we have beings from another world transfer to our world? And it's sort of like these ghosts seem really harmless, and they are just nice and plain and nice and fun to play with. But as soon as the Doctor delves deep and the Cybermen have to act really quickly in order for them to send their entire army out through the ghost portals, through the bridge, so the Cybermen are necessarily the ghosts, but you don't get to see their full state. They are just versions. Like the Doctor mentioned one really good quote, "A footprint doesn't look like a boot," and that just says a lot of how these ghosts walk and kind of move around like Cybermen. So you sort of get that representation that they're not like their full state, but it's sort of like a ghosting sort of state that it makes them really mysterious, and I really like that. Mysterious and lurking around in our world until they decide to advance in their plans and to be fully converted as Cybermen, to travel through from their universe into our universe as fully fledged Cybermen, and they are really good. But however, Doomsday though, they are just treated like shit. They are too soft in Doomsday. Like, as soon as the Daleks come into the episode, they are the main focus. The Cybermen are literally pushed to the side and not given a damn. They are given with so many weak points in the story, and they are so underpowered. And the Daleks feel they are so overpowering. Like, the Cybermen can't even kill one of them. They can't even beat the Cult of Skaro. All the Daleks have been released in millions in the sky. They are just so overwhelmed of how they can destroy the Daleks. They are just, I think they are really underappreciated. The series 2006 finale is just so bad in terms of an ending. Like, no offense, I don't really care about Rose and the Doctor's departure. They have nothing to do with this story. Unfortunately though, I just really see this as a missing point from the Cybermen. It's an embarrassing moment and a real low point for the Cybermen. As soon as the Daleks come in, and you really want that face-off between the Daleks and the Cybermen, and you get that. But what you get though is the Daleks being the massive favoritism of winning every single battle. They kill the Cybermen here and there, but the Cybermen have to hit the Daleks like how many times until they can bloody explode. And it's like they have no way of an advantage. Even though there might be millions of Cybermen and 4 Daleks, it's still not enough. The Cybermen still lose. And it just pains me to say it. Like, I would have liked to see maybe 1 Dalek get exploded. That might have been like, right, so the Cybermen actually have a decent advantage. Instead of it being just like a clean sweep victory for the Daleks, it feels like the Cybermen aren't valued enough in the Doctor Who universe. And I just really feel like when you bring the Daleks into a story, you have to make the Cybermen and the Daleks feel equally apart as powerful. But instead, you make the Daleks more powerful, more entertaining to watch than the Cybermen do, and they would literally just push to the side and not giving a damn at all. Like I said, I just really think they're so powerful, the Cybermen, but if you just push them to the side and want to focus on the Daleks, then you know what, take them out of the equation. Don't force us to cry in front of the screen when Rose gets lost over the bridge and the Doctor is having an emotional traumatizing experience with Rose, and that is now going to be the main focus of the story because of their lost relationship and ending the plot of series 2. But it just literally gives the Cybermen such a weak ending. Like, the weakest ending I've ever seen in the new series. Like, they don't deserve that. They deserve better. But unfortunately, the Daleks are more favoritism in the new series, so all props go to the Daleks, and all the Cybermen are just literally thinking, we could have done better. We could have been better in this story. But no, the director's point of view was pretty much like, the Daleks win, and the Cybermen are pretty much shit. Yeah, now it's one new series. Well done. Our next story is number 11, and we have to go back to series 8, Dark Water and Death in Heaven. My all-time favourite Doctor, Peter Capaldi, delivers an absolutely sensational performance, but unfortunately, the Cybermen here explore the afterlife, and they upgrade all of the lost souls, the lost decaying souls of loads of people, upgrading them to the nano cloud, upgrading them, and then sending the bodies, the souls back to the bodies, and then they are raised up from the dead as Cybermen. And unfortunately, as soon as that amazing plot, that amazing concept is created, what does it lead to? It leads to pretty much nothing. It pretty much makes them just stand around and make Cybermen just walk all around like dead marching zombies. And I'm literally just thinking, you've got a fascinating concept here of developing life after life and taking lost souls from dead people and traumatizing them. Instead of like cremating them, it's giving themselves a bit of an upgrading and to live a second life. When you've got that fascinating creation and that fantastic concept created, what do you do then? You let Danny Pink have his... It's like him just dressing up as a Cyberman in fancy dress, and it literally feels like a mockery of the Cybermen. It literally just doesn't piece together. And I'm not troubling Missy or Peter Capaldi in their performances. They're pretty good, but it's a bit confusing. And let's just say it just doesn't deliver on what we wanted from Dark Water. Dark Water was a much better story. As soon as you saw the skeletons, as soon as you saw the water lowering, you saw the Cybermen helmets, and you saw them being revitalized from dead skeletons to becoming Cybermen suits, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's Cybermen, no fucking way. But then unfortunately, Death in Heaven just seems to be the lowest point for the Cybermen. Again, embarrassing the Cybermen with no terror and no sort of menace. There are a little few creepy moments of the Cybermen in a little sort of cremated sort of chamber, bash out through the chamber and literally come out as a walking, talking, dead body Cyberman. And I know it's a fascinating concept, and I really want them to dive down and, you know, investigate more on this fascinating concept, because it's a really good story. But unfortunately, Devin Heavy is just sidetracked by the way that the Doctor and Missy and Clara and Danny Pink, and I fucking hate Danny Pink, but let's just say it's a really confusing ending. It's not the satisfying ending the Cybermen wanted. And obviously we get a few references to the invasion, like St. Paul's Cathedral, the Cybermen walking down in London, and obviously you get a reference to Nicholas Courtney, who played the Brigadier, as a Cyberbrig. I don't really see that as disrespectful, but let's just say it's controversial, and I'm not trying to say that I like it and I dislike it. I'm just mixed on it. It's sort of showing a lot more respect for Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, but to be replaced as a Cyberman, it's like you really want to see one of your favourite companions in Doctor Who history that's helped you throughout your entire early years of the Doctor. You want to see him as a Cyberman. No, that's not what we wanted, and I kind of hope that they would have maybe gave Nicholas Courtney a better reference than just him being a Cyberbrig. I would have liked maybe the Doctor going to Nicholas Courtney's grave and actually, like, say, kissing on it, or absolutely like saluting instead of the Brigadier being a Cyberbrig. It just feels like it's disrespectful, but I can see why other people will like it. But it's a really controversial move. But like I said, the Cybermen, fantastic concept, but it just doesn't work. It's not executed perfectly. Here we are at the number 10 spot with the series 12 finale, Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children. Now, if you have seen my video on Doctor Who canon, let's just forget about that. Let's just focus on the most important aspect of this story, the Cybermen. And oh my fucking god, the designs of the new Cybermen look sexy. They look beautiful, and it literally gives us goosebumps, referencing the 1960s merging with the 1980s. It's just beautiful stuff, beautiful designs. They have a really good role in Ascension of the Cybermen. They are fantastic, they are really menacing, and they look out to be going on to war in the Timeless Children. But really though, the Timeless Children only gave us Cyber Time Lords, and like I said, designs of Cyber Time Lords look amazing. But after that, yeah, not much to do really. I would literally just see that as this sort of finale is known as possibly the Series 9 Magician's Apprentice and the Witch's Familiar. They have all the Daleks coming back, but what did they do though? Not much. It's the same with this finale, and it really bugs me, because if you're gonna have those beautiful, sexy looking Cybermen, and like I said, I use that term, you know, really passionately, the Cybermen do look phenomenal in this story. But the way that they're treated though, essentially the Cybermen build them up so good in order for the Timeless Children to make a groundbreaking finale and to make a really fantastic ending for the Cybermen. But unfortunately, once they become Cyber Time Lords, they aren't good for any use. And it literally pains me for all of the times of where you see the Cybermen have a brand new design. You expect themselves to do the unthinkable. You expect them to possibly do so much and to be a menacing force. However, literally side along with the Master, and it literally feels like the Master has got henchmen that can regenerate. And I like the idea that the Cyber Time Lords can regenerate and can never die, and it's a really good concept. However though, just in terms of what they actually do, in terms of like the plot is just necessarily focusing on what is canon and what's not canon, and I really do not want to get involved in that, because if you want to learn more about that, then watch my video on my unpopular opinions on Doctor Who canon. But it's just a really disappointing Cyberman story overall in terms of a poor ending. It's not giving what the Cybermen really wanted. It's just so disappointing from Chris Chibnall's point of view, and like I said in that video, he is a bloody fraud, completely messed up the Doctor Who timelines and completely disrespected the Cybermen for what they were. You build them up with a really good design and you really build them up in Essential Disarmament as a really good story, but then as soon as you come to the Timeless Children, all your focus is turned on Doctor Who canon and what is not canon, what's not canon, and wanted to know what are the Timeless Children plotline. That's all he wants to know. In terms of Disarmament, he says, oh yeah, I mean the Cybermen are good here and there, but let's just literally put them out of the picture and let's focus on the Doctor and the Master and what they have in common. It's like, no, we want to see the Cybermen. This is the reason why I tuned into the series finale, because I wanted to see what the Cybermen are going to do on Gallifrey. Just standing around, just being like in awe, massive awe of becoming Cyber Time Lords, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's no use for them. Just poor finishing again, and Chris Chibnall not executing the Cybermen to their full potential. Almost disrespecting the Cybermen for what they are in the 1960s, the 80s, the 70s, and just in general, just disrespecting the Cybermen design and the concept of Cybermen as a whole. Apart from the designs and a reference to handles, the Cybermen drones, it just seems like there's a lot of handles. Remember handles in the 2013 Christmas special with the Doctor? Such of a funny character handles is, and they made loads of versions of him in terms of Cybertrons, and I really like that. But yeah, it's such of a disappointing all around. It's a poor finishing, it's an okay finale. But let's just say the Cybermen deserved better. Our next story is number 9, and this is the story that happened just before the series 12 finale, and I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong. It's The Haunting of Villa Dudati. If I am right on that, then please praise me. If not, then my apologies. But like I said, this is a really good Cyberman story. Now, I have said before that the next Doctor, it didn't work well in a pure historical story. But in this one, it's a gothic horror story, and the lone Cyberman works extremely well. It's a really fantastic story with a really nice horror sort of concept in the Cybermen. You get the first part where you've got these really good characters gelling well with the Doctor and the crew looking around this haunted house. They turn the music levels really to its lowest. You get to hear the listening sounds of the groans, the shadows, really building up to that massive suspense and that massive reveal that you get in the middle of the story. And as soon as the Cybermen come in, then you get a confrontation between the Doctor and the lone Cyberman, and the lone Cyberman looks like my type of Cybermen, looks half converted, half completed. You get that human element, you get that sort of tamed up robotic sort of rustiness. I love that. It references back a lot to Rusty into the Dalek, and it makes the entire process of that you're not near enough completed, that human element still exists. And I like how he blends well in terms of the horror gothic sort of atmosphere of the story. In sort of a horror story, he works extremely well. He doesn't turn down the level of the horror and the scariness. He amplifies it up and he makes it all about him stomping around the terraces and making a threat to the Doctor that you should be worried and don't give the lone Cyberman what he wanted. And as soon as he got what he wanted, it came onto Essential Cybermen and the Timeless Children, but unfortunately was completely taken away in the Timeless Children by being ministerized by the Master. And he is such a really good Cyberman, and he was for me the main talking point of series 12, and in terms of that finale, he was the main point of that whole story. I think he's sensational in this story, but I think as an overall story in terms of horror, it's a very good horror, gothic horror story, let me say. And I do feel that horror stories do work well with the Cybermen, and I do think this is one of the Cybermen's highs of doing something different, doing something extraordinary in order to bring different viewers in and to give the Cybermen fans something to be like talking about, like, can the Cybermen do a horror story done well? And in this one, I think it's a fairly decent horror Cyberman story. Our next story is number 8, and we're going to the very first Cyberman appearance made back in 1966 with the 10th Planet. The 10th Planet is just a wonderful Doctor Who story that introduces us these humanoid-like figures that have been not semi or fully converted, but like sort of a quarter of the way converted, that they have their cloths and the magic can't see their faces, they have their human hands, they have their human faces, and it looks like the best design of you want to see as a Cyberman. It's the sort of the early stages of the Cybermen being fully evolved, and it's such a massive start to the Cybermen era, and it's one of the ideas created by Kit Pedler and Gary Davis, who came up with the idea that other planets out there with other humanoid beings are dying, and their scientists need to find a way of saving and preserving their life and creating spare parts for them. And it's wonderful just to see the Cybermen say, "Care? Why should I care?" in that sort of voice, and the voice is really spine chilling, and it gives the Cybermen more of that. Their tone of voice has changed, their elements of their bodies has changed considerably through the amounts of times they have to invade Earth. And in this story, they invade Earth in order for Mondas to drain all of the Earth's energy, and therefore the Earth will burn like a cinder, and Mondas would have all the power it needs in order to generate, in order to convert and upgrade everyone to become Cybermen. And as you can see, the Cybermen aren't fully converted, but you can see how much they need the energy so badly in order for them to complete the process, to complete the converting process. And it's sort of like the horror elements of seeing a humanoid trying to take other humans and convert them to be like them. And it's just so terrifying. I think Polly suffers the worst, like, because they're people, you should care and they're going to die. No, I should not care. Why do you know as emotions? You do not need them. That sort of voice. And Polly definitely suffers a lot because she's a very emotional character. And to see the difference of what the Cyberman possesses and tells her of what their lifestyle is like, they have no emotions, they have no fear, love and compassion, they have none of that. But it's really interesting to see and fascinating how the Cybermen sort of persuade the humans to obey and, you know, follow their instructions, otherwise communications might get broken, other people may die. And just showing the demand and the authority of the Cybermen, showing that they are the big boys in this Doctor Who story, and they're showing and telling everyone that you should follow my orders. Even the captain, even the general, he's absolutely scared out of his wits. He's this massive aggressive figure that always tries to be better than the Cybermen, and in a way he sort of is, but he definitely falls under the influence that the Cybermen are more advanced than him, with better muscles, and it can actually harm him in a way, and actually how it could be the result of his son leading to death. And in that way it doesn't really happen, but the Cybermen are just that threatening, and even the captain can't stop them, and it also leads into the Doctor's first regeneration. And let's just say that the 10th Planet is also an eye-opener in order to refresh the show, in order to introduce a brand new villain, which we now appreciate nowadays as one of the most iconic robotic / humanoid monsters of all time. And I just think they're wonderful. The Mondasian Cybermen, iconic, wonderful. Our next story is number 7, and we have to go to Colin Baker's era with Attack of the Cybermen. Now this was the beginning of season 22 and the first story of season 22, and like I would have to say, if Colin Baker started off his era with Attack of the Cybermen instead of the Twin Dilemma, we would really appreciate Colin Baker more of a Doctor than we usually do. We sometimes see Colin Baker as this really aggressive, this sort of violent character, like we saw in the Twin Dilemma with his post-regeneration experience, strangling Perry. But if he started out as the Doctor with Attack of the Cybermen, I think we would rank Colin Baker higher as one of our favourite Doctors. He is fantastic in this story. He is so positive and so unexpected of what is going to happen, but then has a really good theory of what could happen. I love the references of Telos, Mondas, and you get to see the Cybertombs regenerated from their last outing that you last saw the Cybertombs, and you get to see references like the invasion, the London Underground, and you get to see the creepiness of the Cybermen hiding in the shadows in the sewer works, carrying out their plans, carrying out their master plans, including the side characters of Lytton, who is fantastic in this story and gets crushed by the hands of the Cybermen, and you can literally see blood coming out of his veins, and it's so terrifying to watch. People may say it's so dark and really aggressive for a target audience like families to watch, but I think it's perfect. It's the right type of violence, and that is why you need to see more violence like this in order to see the terror and what you see from the Cybermen, as they will always create nightmares in your dreams. Because let's face it, being crushed by the Cybermen is not nice, and the way they adapt to the cold environment, and they also use the cryons, I think they're called, but they use them really well to their advantage. They give them some sort of like elements of where you can be like a slave, but in order for them to follow instructions, they have to follow the Cybermen orders, and they seem to know a lot about the cryons and how they are stated in an icy sort of environment, and how they can be a good benefactor to hide all of the materials away, instead of like, I don't know, it's like some sort of powder that unfortunately that is melted with heat becomes like a massive explosion, and that destroys the cyber controller. And we also see the cyber controller with a really good design, and I really do like the control center, and I think it's a generally good story. It moves around a lot of the place, and you get a lot of the references back to the first ever Doctor Who story, and also you get to see the good characters that the semi-converted humanoids on Telos that are trying to get to cyber control. I can't remember their names, but they have really strong hands and massive fists, and they try to disguise themselves as Cybermen in order to evade cyber control and actually destroy the cyber controller and take over. And it's really, really good to see humanoids trying to reverse the cybernetic process and actually have freedom, have emotions, and it's just really powerful to see. So I would say Attack of the Cybermen is violent, it's dark, it's creepy, and just downright so good. At number 6, we have one of my guilty pleasures of a Cyberman story in terms of a base under siege story. We have the Moon Base, first outing of the Cyberman with Patrick Troughton's Doctor. The Moon Base I constantly watch all the time, and it keeps me entertained all the way. I sometimes get visions of what the story is always going to bring, because I always know what's going to happen, and that's necessarily not really a good thing when you're trying to watch a Doctor Who story, but I always know what's going to happen. When there's a creepy moment about to come up, you always keep yourself engaged, and the base under siege moment of being stuck on the moon, being trapped by the Cybermen coming through the store covers, contaminating the food supplies, contaminating the sugars, releasing a virus that the crew members literally have. I don't know what to do here. Our crew members are dying and they're being ill, but we don't know how to cure it, and the Doctor is pretty much in this investigation. He can't find the solution or can't find the cause to what's causing the virus until he finds the sugar, and then releases that, that the Cybermen have planted this virus on the humans in order to convert them, in order to follow their instructions, in order to take over the moon base and destroy millions of lives on the earth with natural disasters. It's a really good way of showing their menace and showing their sneaky sort of vicious and sinister surprise that they may have in the store cupboards and come out with really creepy shadows. And especially in episodes 2 cliffhanger, when they are completely situated in the medical center where the Doctor, Ben and Polly are working to try and work out what this virus is, and they have no idea that the Cybermen are just sleeping in here until they realize, wow, so the Cybermen are here and they have been watching us, they've been listening to us, and they've been there all the time watching the Doctor and just being a massive threat. And as soon as the Doctor saw the boots, it's like, oh my god, no, that can't be. As soon as the Cyberman whips over the sheet, it's like, surprise motherfucker, and it's like, no fucking way. It's one of the most terrifying cliffhangers I've ever seen, and it's just like, you've checked all the base, right? But have you checked here? No. But it's like they walk around the room thinking, this is sort of a tiny room, where could they hide? But then it's like, oh shit, and then they walk back behind the door, and then someone just comes out like, like it's a bloody surprise, and it is so terrifying. It sometimes gives you that little bit of an isolation threat, and it gives you a lot more benefactors of when you're stuck in an isolation period. What happens when you have somebody coming into your home and it's slowly but surely trying to get you? That the moon base feels like where we're in right now with how we're dealing with this COVID-19 virus, and it's such of a relevant similarity of how we're dealing with the virus in this day and age, and it's how the Cybermen invade the moon base and how they become a massive threat to all the crew members and especially the Doctor. And it's a wonderful Doctor Who story, one of my personal favourites, and it's such a wonderful Doctor Who story that unfortunately just couldn't make the top 5 spots. Coming in at number 5, our top 5 spot goes to the Series 10 finale, World Enough in Time and the Doctor Falls, and bloody word, my god, this story is just so good. There's a controversial decision that people may not like the Doctor Falls and what it resolves and how the Cybermen are literally finished off and where did they finish off. The war is still going on, but literally it's the genesis of the Cybermen. Like Genesis of the Daleks, this is the beginning of the Cybermen, and I love the process of having the different time zones where you're at the top of the ship and you go down towards the bottom and time is going really slowly, and how you get to see the slow conversion rate of Bill, who got shot, like I said, got shot and was a shock to all of us. And then you get to see her having a chest unit fitted, and to have to see the years go by, and you may think Bill has been waiting so many years, whereas the Doctor, he's been on that at the top of the ship for merely 5 minutes, and as soon as he gets back down, he's already too late. He can't save the day, and he can't save Bill from the conversion rate, because the conversion rate has happened for how many years since he's been up there. It's just such a wonderful state to see what Bill is converting to be a Mondasian Cyberman, and to see the conversion rate of these patients being locked in the room and shouting pain, pain, pain. And as soon as you get to see the little side character that soon gets to be revealed as John Sims' master, and I have fucking met the guy. I mean, this was like earlier this year, 2020, went to a nightclub and I met the bloody guy himself, John Sims, and he said he absolutely loved playing the parts as the master in that Series 10 finale. He was great to be back, and he just loved working alongside Capaldi. That was one of his best performances as the master, he thinks personally. And really though, it was so good to see him back alongside with Missy, who at this point we didn't actually know whose side she was on, and Capaldi just being Capaldi at his best, being the beast, the king of all of the acting, controlling the situation, being powerful and being the Doctor of who he is, and just really giving a massive performance. And you get to see the different versions of the Cybermen, like all of the different versions throughout the years, and it's like a celebration of the genesis of the Cybermen, creating different versions and ready for war. And then in the Doctor Falls, you get to see the fall of the Doctor, you get to see the rise of the Cybermen and what they bring to the table. It's an ongoing war, an ongoing slaughter, and how they deal with the war over a massive period of time. It's a massive, sensational finale that I personally think has worked extremely well. However, there are a few controversial moments, and I need to give it another rewatch again, but from my past experience of watching this story, it is fucking good. It's such good shit. Loving the references to spare parts, and it's just a wonderful Doctor Who story. Seeing a companion die just like it did in Series 9, but for a series finale that did it better. Instead of having a hell-bent sort of moment with Clara Oswald, having Bill Potts being turned into a Mondasian Cyberman in merely like been taking years, whereas the Doctor's literally thought, hang on, I've only been up there for about 5 minutes. Yeah, but as soon as you come down to the other side of the ship, Bill's been there waiting for bloody years. So it's like the Doctor just can't win. He can't win every battle. And it literally explains in the Doctor Falls this massive war that the Doctor is challenging on. He can't win. He can't win every single battle, and it leads to his regeneration trauma. And it's so terrifying just to see the Doctor regenerate. Like, I was literally tearing up as soon as the Masters abandoned the Doctor, and then you had the Mondasian Cyberman Bill crying with Creative Party lying lifeless. It was so emotional, and it was probably one of the most emotionally Cyberman stories that I have ever been in, and it literally broke my heart when I saw Capaldi lying on the floor defensively and lifeless. Like, I never thought he would ever come back, and until he was was brought to life for a blimp second, and then had his regeneration, and then we saw David Bradley return. But like I said, in terms of the Cybermen, they are excellent, they are phenomenal, they work perfectly in this story. And like I said, it's a wonderful story, and they've made my top 5. At number 4, we have the one and only 8-part thriller that is The Invasion with Patrick Troughton's Doctor. Now, I love the Cybermen coming from underneath the sewers and walking around London for the first time ever. It's just so iconic, and it's one of the massive Doctor Who stories that seems to be 8 parts long but never drags. It is so good. Episodes 1 and 4 are animated, and I do question the animation for considerably what they do, but apart from the animation's looks, the story-wise, the mystery feel, it is so creepy. And Tobias Vaughan is at the centre of every scene. He dominates the scene, he draws you in, he's a massive dictator and he wants to achieve greatness. With the Cybermen, until episode 8, the Cybermen completely not going to be using him, and then they react revenge on Tobias Vaughan, and Tobias Vaughan thinks, I worked so hard with Cybermen, I trusted them, they were my friend, they were doing this for me, and I would have been the powerful being that I am to be, but no. You can't trust the Cybermen, you cannot trust them for what you do or how much power and how much time you revitalise them and give them so much life. And in a way, it literally backfires. So unfortunately, he gets killed at the end of episode 8, and it's so traumatizing to see how a character like him has worked his hardest for the Cybermen but never gets the success, but always suffers the consequences for believing in the Cybermen, for working with the Cybermen, and he gets punished for that. And it's so devastating to see that, but it's a massive epic thriller with units involved, with the Cybermen not appearing until episode 4, I believe it is. But when you get to episode 4, it always feels like you already know a lot. You're getting a good mystery, and it's one of the greatest mysteries in terms of a good mystery feeling story, and it's so really good. And like I said, I think Patrick Charlton is fantastic in this. Jamie and Zoe are excellent. The Brigadier, we get to see Unit at last. Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart, just so fantastic just to see Unit get involved, and the fight scenes with Unit is just amazing. And just one of the most iconic Cyberman designs that I guess just been seen in Series 1's Dalek in Henry Van Stein's museum, and it's like such of an iconic figure of like the emotionless Cyberman plain helmet. Is just so damn terrifying, and it makes you so scared of what the Cybermen are and how all the emotion has been drawn away, and how they use devices to draw in emotion into the Cybermen and make them go insane. And it's just how you see the Cybermen evolve, and you see their differences, and it's a massive way you've seen the Cybermen age and evolve, and how you see them to reach new heights in order to see their plans fully succeed. But we always know that there is something stopping the Cybermen from winning, and that's the Doctor, and the Doctor is fantastic in this, and it's a massive 8-part thriller that doesn't drag, with excellent Cybermen executed perfectly, and Units just being an absolute excellent Unit story. Okay everybody, we're at the top 3. Now this was really tricky to come up with a good list, but for my top 3 I've gone for the best Cyberman story from each decade. And so I'm starting off with the modern series, the best Cyberman story in the modern series, and that is the Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. My word, I was scared as a kid. Watching this in 2006, this was scary shit to me. I was 6 years old, watching this for the first time ever, seeing Cybermen, and I was behind the sofa. It like literally, as soon as I saw the faces, I was behind that sofa crying my eyes out. The next night, I had nightmares. That is what you do when you make the Cybermen scary. And as soon as I watched that, most people would have watched that as their first ever outing with the Cybermen. But my word, that Cyberman story introduced us to the parallel universe, which looked quite calm, but just with a few differences. As soon as the factories take over, you get to see the uprise of the Cybermen getting converted from people out on the streets, lifeless and defenseless, as soon as they're given new life, and then been taken off their humanity and their emotions away and turned into Cybermen, which look so goddamn menacing. I love the designs, it's so creepy, so much nostalgia, so much fear, and it gives the Cybermen a massive implication of what they are all about. And I love the conversion rate, the upgrading process. It's just so different from when you've seen in the classic series. You've seen the Cybermen age and evolve, and it's the evolution of the Cybermen, and you get to see a great process of what the Cybermen are like in the classic series. But here though, it's like a 2-minute job. One person walks into a room, the machines start going on, there's like blades going on, they slice up the head, and it's like, it's gruesome stuff. I watched it as a kid and it was dark, violent stuff. Really it was. It was possibly one of the processes I've seen that was done in like less than a minute. One person walks in, they get themselves, you know, made up into cyber suits, and then they walk out the next scene like a Cyberman. And I was like, I don't want to become like that. Like literally, it was that quick. I was speechless. Speechless of how quick a cyber conversion process is like, and to see the amount of scale of it. As soon as one person gets converted, you get to see how many machines are going out all at once, and it's like, my word, this is on top of a motherfucking scale, and it's huge. And as soon as one person dies that you really relate to, like Jackie Tyler, as soon as she gets converted, the drama raises the stake and it gets personal and it gets a lot more emotionless, and it's so terrifying to see the scenes like Ricky being chased by the Cybermen and getting deleted, and then Mickey is left like in the shadows with the Cybermen just standing there like, you know, like walking soldiers, and just staring at Mickey like, it's terrifying. It's literally terrifying, just like a Cyberman just standing there and looking at you, and you're like, I can't do anything. It's literally the most terrifying Cyberman I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, even rewatching it, it gives me nightmares, it gives me terror, it gives me nostalgia. I love the parallel universe, the fact that it's all calm and all harmless. As soon as you get to see little differences, like the earpods, like the electromagnetic companies, like the cyber industries, the factories, the downloading the data. As soon as you see all of that, you feel like, this is not Earth, this is sort of like Earth but different, and Pete Tyler is alive, and you get to see a really awkward relationship between Rose and Pete Tyler, and the Doctor is at his best. And I love the way that he has a really good confrontation with John Lumick, who basically becomes the cyber Davros in this story, who becomes the cyber controller, and he is wonderful in this. And you get to see a lot of funny moments, especially with Ricky and Mickey getting their names mixed up. You can't tell who's who, but Mickey becomes a hero. He becomes a lot more intelligent in this. You get to see one of the most changed characters. As soon as you travel with the 10th Doctor, Mickey Smith became such of an idiot, but then in this story became a hero, a genius, an intellectual genius, and I never saw this coming from Noah Clarke. So credit to him, he's a massive performer in this story, and credit to Mickey, because I love the little moments of where the Doctor was telling him binary codes of like binary 9 of what that is the code in order for the Cybermen to give their souls back. And it was just so terrifying to see the Cybermen see what they are, and to see themselves of what they are now, of what they used to be. And it's just so terrifying. They blow themselves up, and it's so emotionless to see how you get to see a Cyberman just getting destroyed by emotions. And it's just, oh, it's wonderful. I love Rise of Cybermen and the Age of Steel, and it's just the best Cyberman story that we've seen in the 2000s. Next up we have number 2, and this is the best Cyberman story from the 1980s. We have Earthshock. Earthshock, the massive story that it is, creating a lot of shocks, creating one of the most unexpected deaths of all time, with Adric dying right at the very end, and giving us a Doctor Who story that has never done before. A character dying and having a silent credits at the very end of episode 4. Just really entertaining stuff. I love the consequences that we get with the cyber controller. He feels so powered and so in authority. You get episode 1, which is really creepy, really dark, dates back to the days of the dinosaurs, and how that plays along with the plot, and how the cyber controller and the whole Cybermen identify the Doctor as a real enemy, a real threat. And we get flashbacks from previous Doctor Who stories featuring the Cybermen. It's wonderful stuff, and it's also what most people think is the best Cyberman story of all time. But for me, there's one story out there that is better than all the rest. But like I said, Earthshock is just sensational. Just absolutely wonderful. It's not dragging. The companions are really good. P. Davison is at his best, and he feels really, really vulnerable at the fact that the controller is being so much more menacing, and he's giving his more direct and authoritative figure, showing that the Cybermen have how they have evolved and how they have changed for so long, and how they have become a threat and come back to the Doctor and are going to stop him. And it's just a sensational performance from Peter Davison. The Cybermen are at their best. The fight scenes are incredible. The darkness, I love it. It's just like as soon as you see the Cybermen hiding in the shadows, hiding in the dark, It's wonderful stuff, and even the androids are really good in episode 1. It gives you a really good Base Under Siege feeling. It's so Base Under Siege, I love it. I love Base Under Siege stories, and I need to do a tier list of my favourite Base Under Siege stories. But like I said, that's not my favourites. This is my favourite, number 1. And so, as you guessed it, number 1 is my all-time favourite Cyberman story of all time. It is The Tomb of the Cybermen. This is such of a massive story for me, because this is the second story that I ever saw in the classic series. This was the story that was so iconic, and to this day is the most iconic Cyberman story in the 1960s decade. And in the 1960s decade, they did the Cybermen to perfection, and I think this is the best Cyberman story in the 1960s decade. You can argue that the Invasion might be up there, or the Moon Base, or the Wheel in Space, but no, the Tomb of the Cybermen is the most iconic and the most famous. As soon as it was brought back from being a missing episode, and then all of a sudden getting the rejuvenated response from fans all over the world, loving the fact of the Cybermen coming out of the tombs. And I know it might have been cling film back then, and I know how outdated it may look, but it's such of an iconic moment of seeing the Cybermen coming through the tombs and coming to get you. It's scary stuff, and I love the fact they arrive on Telos with a plan on how to find the Cybermen. But it's the fact of temptation. The fact of temptation when it leads you to the wonders of what you're going to expect from finding the lost tombs on Telos. However, when you sometimes go into temptation, you sometimes suffer the consequences, and this is what this story brings. It brings a lot of consequences, with Cyberman having to see the first ever cyber conversion for a human that we've ever seen, until we get to see the attack of the Cybermen with Litten getting converted as a Cyberman. But in this, we see Cyberman being converted, and it's so terrifying to watch. And I love the fact that the Cyber Controller has one of the best lines of the Cyberman decade. You belong to us, you shall be like us. It's terrifying. It's scary shit, but it's really so sensational. I love Tomb of the Cybermen, and it even has those funny moments with Jamie and the Doctor holding hands. I thought that was so funny. You have those really good emotional parts, which I think is the most emotional parts in the story, when the Doctor's talking with Victoria, talking about families and loves and relationships, and talking about, you know, how we're so different from everyone else's. There's no one else in the universe compared to what we're doing, and it's the only sort of silver lining in the story, that there is an emotional side. It's not all about seeing how the Cybermen are completely lifeless and so emotionless, but you get to see some sort of emotion, and it brings everybody together. It brings everybody together, that even through the desperate times when it seems like no hope is all going to be lost, there is still the silver lining. We still have each other, and that's the emotional parts that the Cybermen can't experience, and we feel that's a strong advantage. And it's wonderful. It's a fantastic Doctor Who story, and the most iconic Doctor Who story that I've ever seen in my life, and the one that shows the best and the most terrifying design of the Cybermen in the 1960s decade, and possibly the best sort of moments ever of them coming through the tombs and scaring the living shit out of us back in the 1960s when we weren't even born. We never saw this, but as soon as you see the Cybermen on YouTube, this is their moment of coming out from the tomb. I bet this is the best or the number 1 clip that most people watch in order to get to see what the Cybermen are like. And when you see this, and I know it's outdated, yes, it's cling film, I know, but it's so good. I love this. It's one of my favourite Cyberman stories, and I know it's not going to be rated as the highest Cyberman story. Some people rate it as a great Cyberman story, but for me, this is my all-time favourite. A second ever classic Who story, and I absolutely love Tomb of the Cybermen. Let me know of your thoughts in the comment section down below. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please give a like on this video, please share and subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Tell me, what would you rank your favourite Cyberman stories in the list from worst to best? Give me your opinions in the comment section down below. Thanks so much everyone for watching. It's been a massive pleasure to tell all of you my humble thoughts on the Cybermen as a whole, and let's just hope in the near future we get some more epic Cyberman stories, and I really hope so, because the new series has been slated with Cyberman stories, but thank goodness we are going to have so many more Cyberman stories, and I just hope they are more cared and more appreciated and more respectful in the near future. But thanks so much everyone for watching, and I'll see you soon in the new video. Until then, take care of yourselves, stay home, protect the NHS and save lives. Thanks so much everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.